can't do it.
Okay.
We'll do it live.
Okay. No.
We'll do it live. It. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. Thing sucked.
And here we go. It's another edition of the Daily Puck Drop here on this Tuesday, your daily sports podcast, kiddos, on a very busy day. It's NFL trade deadline. We'll get you the very latest on what has just transpired this morning for the Seahawks in a move they've just made. Trade deadline ending at 1 o'clock today. John Canzano will join us here in a few minutes. We cover all things college football on Tuesdays with John, and then back into the NFL. Danny Kelly from The Ringer, Danny's Dimes, will get his thoughts on trade deadline day and a full weekend recap of all the action in the NFL. And we'll go over more NFL trade rumors and trades that have been made. A couple of blockbusters just going down here on this Tuesday. We wrap up every show with Hey, What the Puck. Of course, we always come to you via the Limback Lumber Studios. Big thanks to Limback Lumber, Paul and the crew for sponsoring the Daily Puck Drop and Puck Sports. They're going to take care of you, any of your lumber needs, contractors, do-it-yourselfers. They are the number one spot for you. They're going to do it. They're going to take care of you. Handshake and a smile, cover you all. All right, give them a call. They're at Limback Lumber. They're always available. Tell them Puck sent you, 206-782-3487. Visit them at limbacklumber.com. You can also visit me on social media, Puck Sports everywhere, except for on TikTok. It's Puck_sports. And please visit, find everything that we do, video, audio, and where you can sign up to become a member of the Pucks Posse up there at pucksports.com. Well, let's just jump right into it. The Seahawks just making a move early this morning here on a Tuesday. Rashid Shaheed, a wide receiver out of New Orleans. At this moment, we don't know what the trade compensation is for that the Saints get back in return for him. But a guy that has a history there with Clint Kubiak, a fourth-year wide receiver out of Weber State. He comes to Seattle this year with 66 targets, 44 receptions on the year, 499 yards, and is averaging about 11.3 yards per catch. It is down from where his career was, but again, if you go back in his time with Kubiak, you're talking about a guy that was averaging 17.4 yards per catch, 15.6, 17.5, does have 2 touchdowns on the season. So, again, an offense that has shown that their strength is passing the ball so far, dedicated to the run, at least showing it to you, but really making hay in the passing game, have added a huge weapon there right now in Rashid Shaheed, the wide receiver there out of New Orleans. So, again, adding to a position of strength. This was a position group that many people had talked about just in terms of, hey, would they look to add there? Not necessarily because of what's happening there with Cooper Kupp, but again, doesn't hurt that you add them to that wide receiver core with what Kupp is dealing with right now with the hamstring injury. I think you talk to people, even if Kupp didn't have anything that was going on, this seemed like a move they wanted to make to add to that group. Now you add a true deep threat to this offense. Now Horton certainly can provide that as well, but a guy that's been a proven talent in the National Football League to be able to hit you deep with the way that Sam Darnold's playing, the way that the MVP level that Jackson Smith and Jigba is playing, and then, Horton has had a very, solid rookie season. So big move there by the Seahawks. Also, another move that just went down. The Jets have traded Sauce Gardner to the Colts for 2 first-round picks. That's a huge blockbuster trade. Early in the day, Logan Wilson was traded from the Bengals to the Cowboys for a 7th-round pick, and former Seahawks defensive end Draymond Jones traded by the Titans to the Ravens for a 2026 conditional 5th-round pick. But again, big story is Seahawks getting a wide receiver, 4th-year man out of Weber State, Rashid Shaheed, who had time in the Saints offense under Clint Kubiak, giving now the Seahawks another deep threat to this offensive arsenal that you saw on Sunday night. That was explosive. All right. We're going to talk to John Canzano coming up here in just a quick second. And again, to get you covered all things college football, a reminder coming up later in the show, we'll talk to Danny Kelly. They're from The Ringer. Danny will provide us with his Danny Dimes. I also asked Danny, hey, will you look at some big trades that you would like? Not just the Seahawks, but anyone to make. And so we'll have more on what the Seahawks did with Rashid Shaheed, also the Sauce Gardner deal, and more NFL news coming up with Danny Kelly later in the show. But let's talk a little college football with our guy, John Canzano from johncanzano.com. His weekly appearance brought to you by fine folks at Flat Stick Pub. If it's fun you desire, it's fun you're going to get at Flat Stick Pub. It doesn't matter what the occasion is, whether it's date night, guys night, ladies night, or large group event, Flat Stick Pub's got you covered. They have 6 great locations across the Pacific Northwest, from Pioneer Square to Kirkland, South Lake Union, Spokane, Bellingham, and Redmond. All locations offer the best pub experience in Washington. 2 rules at Flat Stick Pub: drink local and have fun. Pretty simple. So if you like to have fun, love local beer, and great tasting food, make Flat Stick Pub your next spot. Visit them at flatstickpub.com. And John Canzano joins us right now, johncanzano.com. You can read all of his work there. The Bald-Faced Truth, the radio program down there in beautiful, lovely Portland, Oregon from, 3 to 6 o'clock. He's got you covered there, down there in Portland. You know, you're an old school reporter. I mean, you're still a reporter now, but I mean, that old dogged reporter from when you were younger, covering trade deadline days. You covered baseball back in the day. It's just nothing gets those juices flowing like covering a trade deadline day.
Yeah, I covered the NFL in 2000, 2001. And so, the thing I find interesting is that the trade deadline has become more of a edge of your seat national story in all these sports. And I think the NFL is doing a better job this year, because I can remember trade deadlines of the past that kind of came and went and you really didn't know what was going on, but they have created an event that is, I think intentionally placed here on this Tuesday. Well positioned right in the thick of the season. You see the Colts making a move, the Seahawks making a move. These teams are all trying to get a little better. It feels a little bit like the NBA or Major League Baseball at the trade deadline.
Can you envision a time in which college football has a trade deadline?
Ooh, yes. Yes, I can. Because look, the comment was made to me the other day. I was at the Washington State-Oregon State game on the sideline, and Alex Brink was there, Washington State QB, and we were kind of talking about how the players are perceived, and he was like, these guys are pros, they're making money. And I had a ACC basketball coach reach out to me this week, and he just wanted to vent. He was venting about how guys on his roster maybe are caught up in the money, caught up in they sound and act like pros. Yeah. And he tells them, hey, you guys are professionals. Like, the expectations are there. You're not treated anymore like you're, this is a college kid. Let's give them time to develop. Right. So I could see a system where college football eventually unionizes the players, splits away from the NCAA, creates player contracts, and then creates a collective bargaining agreement that affords for a trade deadline in the middle of the season. I mean, why not? It's already happening. And I called Rob Mullins, the Oregon AD, on this. He came on my show and he kept saying student athlete. He's not alone.
So dumb.
And I said, come on. There, even Dylan Gabriel was like, hey, we're pros, John. We're pros. This is the pros now.
Let's be honest, it's been that way forever. And it's just the student athlete thing is just such a farce, in college sports. Yeah, it's you see how much it's gone professional already, and I agree with you. And it's interesting, because everything's transactional now, right? Yeah. And no one spends 4 years there anymore, or 3 years, or 2 years, whatever. It's 1 year, and you move on, and it's a different player each year. I mean, there's nothing like this in sports, though, right? Because professional sports, at least they have contracts where you are locked into that. See, I was getting into it today with someone on social media, because like, you have a platform, you should be pumping up NIL more. I'm like, you know what? It's not my job to do that.
Yeah.
What? I'm not going to tell people how to spend their money. They want to donate, fine. But here's my fundamental issue with the NIL. Fine, you want to pay players and all that. That's great. We've been paying players, if I can spit it out forever. But I don't know what the deal is. At least in professional sports, I know it's a 3-year contract for X amount.
Yeah.
In college, I have no idea what it is, John.
Most of these college contracts are 1 year deals. Some of them include incentives for a second year. I've seen a couple of the contracts. They blow your mind though, because as you read through it, it's not as binding as, ironclad like the NFL contracts, Major League Baseball contracts are that hold a player in. I think ultimately if a player wants to go somewhere else and wants to challenge that, I think the program's going to throw their hands up and go, okay, you have to give back what you're contractually obligated to do in the deal. But think about this. A couple things that I found out over the weekend. I was talking with some Washington State high-level donors about John Mateer. Mm-hmm. And remember back in that end of that season, there was a lot of hand-wringing in Pullman about, can you go to the coffee company? Can you go to the winery? Can you go to the beer maker and get everybody on board in the Cougar Collective? And I think they did a really nice job, that Cougar Collective, of kind of piecemealing together the best deal that they could possibly get to John Mateer. And I'm told now that the totality of that package was $1.2 million. They came up with 1.2 for Mateer. Then Mateer goes and talks to Oklahoma. Ben Arbuckle's gone. That's his guy. He talks to Oklahoma and he comes back, and the phone call back to the donors, very apologetic, John Mateer says, hey, I got a problem here. The package is worth $3.4 million to go to Oklahoma. Yeah. Further, I am told that Bill Belichick and North Carolina got involved and were trying to peel Mateer away from Oklahoma at the same time. He was in this tremendous position of advantage. And so I turned to the donors at Washington State. I said, well, what do you tell Mateer when he calls you and says, hey, I appreciate you putting it, because he knows what $1.2 million is to the Cougar Collective.
Sure.
What do you tell him? And they said, we wish you the best, John. Go get what's yours. Simultaneously on Saturday, Malik Murphy, the former starting quarterback for Oregon State, he got $1.5 million to come to Oregon State. He's benched. The guy starting in his place on Saturday, Jabari Johnson, is getting $50,000, Puck. And you got a real problem if you don't allocate your dollars right in your Oregon State. Like, you got $1.5 million standing on the sideline. People are not happy with that. And everyone goes, oh, well, they're kids. They're not really kids. Mateer's not really a kid when he goes to Oklahoma. He's making $3.4 million, and he's got to produce or they're going to replace him. So the world is changed for these guys. And I do think one day we'll get to a collective bargaining agreement and unionization and all that.
You think about Mateer for a second. He's making double what Jimmy Rogers is making.
Yeah.
And he would have, at Washington State, had they paid him 1.2, would have just been a couple of $100,000 under his head coach.
Yeah.
I mean, think about that, John.
Yeah.
It's just,
you can't stand in the kid's way, right? You can't stand in his way. But the pitch, the pitch they were making to him was, hey, Drew Bledsoe, Ryan Leaf,
sure.
They were saying, hey, you can be the next Drew Bledsoe and Ryan Leaf. Like, you stay here, you could be that guy. Or you go to Oklahoma, and guess what? If you don't produce, they're going to recruit right over the top of you, and you're going to get lost in there. Now, he has the injury. Maybe he's better off that he went and took the $3.4 million, because we don't know, right? We don't know what happens with John Mateer.
I understand it. I mean, maybe it would have been a difference. Maybe the tugging at the heartstrings about the quarterbacks and all that would have paid off had he been a Northwest guy. But he's a Texas guy, close to the border of Oklahoma. He doesn't care about Drew Bledsoe and those guys.
They told him to get in your truck and drive to Oklahoma. I mean, and with their blessing. I mean, those guys know. And I think that showed, too, that the Washington State donors cared about Mateer, right? They didn't just care that he was there. And I think you go to a lot of schools, and I've talked to some of these collectives, they actually do feel like they're just buying players, right? They're just buying players and putting them in place. So I think, that folksy approach can work to a certain extent, but not when you're up. If Oklahoma's offer had been 1.7, maybe you're in the conversation, but you're not when it's 3.4.
And this is what I will say to anyone that runs these collectives. I think my advice to them would be, if they hired the Puckett crisis firm, and we dip our toes into the NIL world, you and me, John, I would say to anyone, if you're more transparent about who's getting paid, what they're getting paid, what the deal is like, I think you'd have more people that would give money. But when you have no idea who's getting the money, how much is the said person getting, why we're so secretive about what these guys are getting paid, that's what I don't like about it. I don't like that you don't you don't really know where your money is going. And then you bring up the story in Oregon State that you've reported on at johncanzano.com. If I'm a Beaver alum and I've been given all this money, but wait a minute, my money's not really going to the players now. Now it's going to this third party firm that you guys hired. So yeah, that's to me the issue that I have with it. If it was on the up and up and everyone could see what I want to know what Zeviakhaus is getting. I don't want to be told what the rumor is he's getting. I want to know what he's getting. You want to be paid like professionals. Let's, I can go to Spotrac, and I can look at the salaries of everybody in Major League Baseball, everybody in the NFL, everybody in the NBA. College football should stop hiding behind this and make this all public if they want to be treated like professionals. Yeah,
and they don't want to get in. One of the reasons why they don't talk about the money is they don't want the rest of the locker room to know, But I can get to the people. Next week when I come on in this place, I'll tell you what Zeviakhaus is getting. I can get to the people on both sides who are negotiating this deal. You can find the information out. But it just knocked me over when Malik Murphy's on the sideline holding a clipboard and he's getting $1.5 million and your quarterback's getting $50,000. It tells me you've done something wrong from a general manager standpoint, right? You've mismanaged your roster there. You can't have that situation. And I wonder about Trent Bray. Like, is it just possible that whoever was making the GM moves at Oregon State gave too much money to Malik Murphy? Maybe there should have been a pushback there. And could they have invested that money in 3 offensive linemen and just ran the football like crazy? I mean, you're going to have to play Moneyball and you're going to have to, there's a path for you. And the great Ryan Divish, who appears on your show here, told me this one time. I was asking him about the Mariners because the Mariners don't have the same payroll as the Yankees or the Dodgers. And I was asking him about the Mariners. And I say, how do the Mariners get to the World Series or how do they get to the ALCS and compete? And he said they have a path, but they can't afford a season-ending injury. They can't afford a bad free agent signing. You just have to be a little better. And so I think, Oregon State and Washington State, as they go off into this new world conference, they're going to have to be really smart and just a little better because you can't have a guy making $1.5 million standing around on the sideline.
I'm watching that game on Saturday. The guy that should be making $1.5 million is the running back.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever the Hankerson's getting.
Yeah, Anthony
paid.
Hankerson. Yep.
He's a stud.
Yeah.
He's a real good running back. And well, that was a disaster. How did Rob Akey and Oregon State ruin my Saturday night?
Yeah. Akey's such an interesting character, and Washington State fans may remember him, from their SO staff. But Akey was on my show, and I said, they had a bye week. They beat Lafayette. And, he came up to me on the sideline before the game, and I said, it's been so long since you lost. Maybe your guys forgot how to lose. Like, they had been off for a while. And it was interesting to watch Washington State make the mistakes because those were the mistakes that Oregon State has made all year. You missed the field goal. You have the special teams miscue. You throw an untimely interception or two. Zeviakhaus, who has been very good, was terrible in this game. And it just kind of broke Oregon State's way. I had picked the Cougs to win that and cover the spread even because how could you bank on Oregon State in that setting? But there was a real feeling before the game, Puck, that these games, they're important, but what really matters is coming in 2026 for these two schools. There was just a very forward-thinking approach to it. It was almost like, this is cool, but they've got to get in position for what comes next, and that's coming fast.
Yeah, I've tried to, preach patience to the Wazoo fan base. I mean, everybody wants the offensive coordinator fired. There's a group that doesn't like Jimmy Rogers, and they want, I don't know if they want him fired, but they don't like the direction of it. I think a lot of this has to go to the style of play. Cougar fans aren't this is new to them, the way that they play, right? Defense first, kind of not the most exciting offense in the world. I mean, it's been better. It was certainly not on display there on Saturday. I think Cougar fans need to take a step back and understand that this wasn't just, hey, we're going to run the ball more. This is an institutional, philosophical change of how you play football. And I think people need to wrap their heads around that one. I remember when Mike Leach came in 2012. It was ugly. It was ugly football. It took him the entire year to get that offense going. I remember the debut. Everyone was excited. They were on the road in Provo taking on BYU. I think they scored 6 points. It was awful.
Yeah.
Awful. And so pump the brakes for everyone that wants to throw in the towel, because patience is gone in this sport now. And I think that's the thing that's scary, is that you see these programs now after 2 years, 3 years, we got to move on. And you're like, Jesus, man. I mean, how long does it take to build a real successful college football team?
And you have to think about, like, what he's building there at Washington State has to be designed to contend with San Diego State, Boise State, Oregon State. So look at the identity. He feels like he can recruit players to Pullman that are going to play that brand of football. And in some ways, they remind me a little bit of, a little bit of Stanford, a little bit of old Oregon State to a certain extent. They're going to want to run the football. They're going to want to run the football and play defense. And right now I'm looking at San Diego State and Boise State, and I'm going, okay, that's going to be two schools that I definitely expect to be at the top of the new Pac-12. A lot of questions about the format, by the way. I've done some reporting on this. Like, what are they going to do for 2026? Right now they have 8 football schools. So, and I got a little bit on that, but I think Jimmy Rogers is fine. And I think you have to go back to, hey, they could have beat Mississippi. They could have beat Virginia. You'd be feeling very different. They could have beat Oregon State. You'd be feeling very different with those 3 wins right now if you're a Coug fan. I had them down for 3 wins this season, right? And so I think they're playing with a little bit with house money. Give him some time. Let him get his guys in there. You don't have to be patient. You don't have to give him 3 years, but give him a second season before you start asking for him to be fired.
So what will happen? The schedule is set for 26, but what about 27?
Yeah, 26 is still up in the air, though, from a football perspective. So they're going to play. They're saying there's 3 options right now for 26. Now, I am being told not to expect the schedule for 2026 to be released until maybe about February, maybe even early March. Keep an eye on that. Like, you're going to get it late. Why? Because there's 3 options. Well, option 1 is everybody, there's a 7-game conference schedule because there's 8 teams. Everybody's going to have to go out and find extra non-conference games, right? So Washington State right now has 4 on the books. Oregon State has 3 on the books. So Washington State would need 1 more non-conference game. Oregon State would need 2. There's a cost to that. There's also some question about where do you schedule that, because most of these other conferences start playing their games, in week 4 and 5, right? So where do you put this extra conference, non-conference game if you're the new World Pac-12? So that's option 1, comes with a cost, is a little cumbersome. Option 2 is, could they go out and have a partnership with a conference like the Sun Belt or Conference USA? They have discussed this. Now, would it be an alliance? No. Would it be like a scheduling partnership like the Mountain West? No, no one wants to do that again. But it might be the kind of thing where you just go, hey, our 8 teams are going to cross over and we're going to play the 8 teams in the Sun Belt, and the Sun Belt kindly opens up some windows in like week 5 or 6 of their season to let that happen. That is still on the table and being explored. Third option, what you're seeing right now with Oregon State and Washington State, a home and home between 2 members of the conference. And so they would maybe create some natural rivalries and go, okay, San Diego State is going to play Boise State, Fresno State's going to play Colorado State, Oregon State and Washington State will play a home and home. Now, this could be just a 1-year thing, Puck. I am also told that there's some concern about that because they're going to have a conference championship game at the end, and they don't want a third matchup between 2 teams. Like, TV partner is not going to want to see the third Oregon State, Washington State game, and this one's for the conference championship. So they've talked about, maybe the second game doesn't count in the league standings. Maybe they leave that second date open, and 4 teams in the conference know they have home games. 4 teams know they're going on the road, but they don't know where they're playing. And they do something that no one's ever done before, where they just go, hey, we will set the final week of the season schedule will be set in week 8. And so they'll have a month to know who they're going to play. And so they can kind of look at the matchups and give their television partners the best possible games. There's a little bit of a flex element to that. So this is all still up in the air. I kind of like the idea of crossing over and playing the Sun Belt or the American or somebody. It just gives you a chance to show how deep your conference is, but we'll see where they land. What do you like?
I mean, I would like them to start scheduling, games against the old conference.
Yeah.
That's what I want.
Okay.
I would like all of them, and maybe specifically those 2 schools, to fill out their non-conference with the schools they used to play. That
Stanford, Cal, UCLA. Yeah.
That's what I would like to see. But
it's hard to get those games though, with all the conferences going to 9 conference games. Yeah. It leaves fewer windows for non-conference. And by the way, those windows happen to fall in the first 3 weeks of the season. And so you end up with a little bit of a problem. I am being told whatever happens in 26 doesn't necessarily mean that's going to happen in 27. I still think, Puck, they're looking for additional members, either all sports members or football members, but not for 26, for 27 and beyond. I'm still watching UNLV very closely.
Okay. All right. We might have a collision course. Speaking of two foes in the Pac-12, now in the Big Ten, we could have a collision course at the end of the season. Very realistic that Oregon and Washington don't lose again before they face off at the end of the season. For Washington, again, it's been a season where it's, the fan base has been upset because they haven't been ranked. They're finally ranked now, but they could and should. They should be 9-2 by the time they face Oregon at home. There is no excuse for them to lose on the road at Wisconsin, Purdue, and UCLA. They're better than all three of those teams. And if they lose one of those, then that's, it's a colossal mistake there on the entire football team if they lose one of those games. So if they do that, though, that's a heck of a football game that they've got, because now if you're Oregon and Dan Lanning, you're like, well, we feel like we're the better football team. Well, boy, do they got the ace up their sleeve, and that ace up their sleeve being that quarterback.
Yeah, and look, there's a chance Oregon could be 9-2 at that point. Let's be real. They're going to Iowa this weekend.
Yeah.
Oregon's been pushed around at the line of scrimmage the last few games. Iowa's got some big bodies. Like that. This is an interesting matchup. It's dicey for Oregon. I also think that game plays to Washington's favor. Oregon's not the kind of team that's given Washington problems in the last 2 years. This is not a put a cleat in the turf and push you around the stadium Oregon front seven on defense or offensive line. They are not as physical as Michigan or Ohio State. So I think, if you're a Husky fan, you kind of look at that and go, hey, we got a puncher's chance to win that game and spoil Oregon's season and really validate themselves, because these rankings that are going to come out tonight, I expect Oregon's going to be somewhere around 8 in the rankings. That'd be a huge win for Washington at the end of the year. But Oregon's got Iowa, it's got USC, it's got Minnesota on a Friday night, and then it's got the Huskies waiting at the end.
Yeah, I've heard people say, even if they were to beat Oregon, they'd be 10-2. Would there still be some question marks whether or not they'd be in the top 12? I don't think there'd be any question marks.
No question. They're in.
Zero. They're in if they go 10-2 and knock off Oregon. All right, so I do a show every week on Thursdays with a former coworker of mine, Mitch Levy, Mitch Unfiltered. A world-renowned podcast. He was a longtime morning show host on KJR. He brought this up to me last week, and I had not thought of it. He was the first person to bring this up. When it comes to Jedd Fisch and all these head coach openings, you haven't really heard his name been thrown out there. He hasn't signed a new deal yet, like all these other coaches do, because they're being courted, right? Florida's out there. That's his alma mater. UCLA is open. He used to coach there at UCLA. But Mitch brought up something really interesting to me. He goes, he has something that none of these coaches have. I was like, well, what? Well, he could go to Florida, and maybe he's not Florida's first choice. It seems like it's Lane Kiffin and then somebody else. But he could go to Florida or any other one of these programs and say, if you hire me, I'm bringing also one of the leading Heisman Trophy candidates next season.
Mm-hmm.
It's what Arbuckle did last year at Oklahoma. You hire me, I'm bringing you John Mantier.
Yep.
So if you're Florida, you can hire Lane Kiffin or hire who else. But if you hire Jedd Fisch, in all likelihood, you're getting Damon Williams. I mean, it's the new age of coaching hires, right? The package deals.
Yeah, but I'm looking at Jedd Fisch, and I'm thinking for Washington fans, make sure you hydrate, make sure you rest, because I think the Fisch thing is going to drag on. I think he's not going to be the first choice at either one of those schools. He'll be a second choice. And so because of that, I kind of think we're going to be talking about this while Washington is getting ready to play Oregon. Is it a distraction for that game? That is a big question. That could be a real wild card, because we've seen this happen, because right at the end of that game, it could be the day after that Jedd Fisch goes, hey, I've accepted this job. I won't be coaching this team beyond here. So keep an eye on that thing. But I think it's going to drag on. I think it's going to be a question. People have pointed out that, Jedd's family's not living in the Seattle area. Is it more advantageous for him to be in Gainesville or in LA? That could play a factor. He seems like the kind of guy who's been so transient and moved around so much that he would value kind of trying to get somewhere, maybe at some point of his life and just stay, is that Washington. That's a good job. He could win 8 or 9 games there and nobody's calling for his head, right? Like I think it's a great job. You've got the resources. You don't have the expectations. I think the media market there is fairly gentle for the size of the market it is. There's a lot to be said for him staying put, but I kind of think he's going to be on the move. It's just what he's done.
It's what he's always done.
It's Dennis Erickson. It is
Dennis Erickson.
Yeah.
I do find it fascinating the way that college football is now, that he can use.
Yeah.
Now he'd have to get Damon Williams on his side. I mean, you'd have to agree with him.
It's Aiden Childs to Michigan State, man. It's right. John Mateer to Oklahoma. It's
exactly right.
This has gone on in club sports forever, right? You hire, you get my coach, you get my player, and so
yes.
It's just club sports with more money. Come on.
You know what? You're exactly right. That's exactly what it is. There's a big game going on in the Big 12 this week, and I've always wondered this, especially in this new age of football with NIL and these collectives. BYU's taking on Texas Tech. Cougars are 8-0. I honestly don't. No one in America can compete with them if they went all in on football, money-wise. No one. I mean, you can go do your own research of how much money that church has and how much money they would be willing to spend. Do we know how much they are, what their NIL, what their collective deal is like? Because I would just think that they could outbid anyone if they wanted to.
I was looking just at their football investment from the university side this year because they were playing a game against Portland State. Portland State's entire athletic department budget is about $5 million. BYU's football budget and their revenue sharing puts them about $65 million just for football. Okay. $65 million. When you throw the collective on top of that, it's evident these rankings are coming out tonight. BYU is going to be like number 7. Oregon's going to be number 8. You're going to see people talk about Texas Tech. They're going to be at 9. You'll hear talk about SMU as you did last year. SMU's got the Boulevard Collective. Ohio State's going to be 1. Your Indiana's going to be 2. Alabama's going to be 3. Texas A&M's going to be 4. Guess where the spenders are, Puck? There's no outlier in here. There's nobody in there going, hey, we did it for $2 million. Nobody's doing that. Yeah. Closest you have is Memphis, who will get in, be the number 12 spot in the bracket because they're the highest group of 5 school. But these are the spenders that are going to get revealed tonight, where the big reveal is BYU's got money. Texas Tech has money. Oregon has money. These are the spenders.
Where if you are a Washington fan, when the rankings come out, where do you expect them to be? Where should they expect to be, and what makes them comfortable and still giving them a shot? And they still very much have a shot.
It doesn't matter because remember last year the first rankings came out. Arizona State was unranked. Clemson was like 23rd. Right. They both got in. This first ranking doesn't matter that much. You just need to win. You can Jedd Fisch going to come out and say we're in control of our destiny, and he's right. Because all they need to do is win games, and they're going to move up, and they'll move into the top 12 if they win out. Granted, the day before that selection release, if you're a 2-loss team, you're going to be a little nervous because you're not going to know where are we playing, who are we playing, are we going to get hosed? Everybody, there's one team that'll probably get hosed. You'll have a little bit of nerves there. But if they win out and they've got to win against Oregon, they're going to get in there and they'll be in there. But for Washington fans that want to hear their team name announced, just the fact that they'd get announced today, it should be enough. It means you're in the top 25, somewhere in the 20s, probably where they're going to be. You got to think, too, about school like San Diego State. I'm curious to see what the committee will do with San Diego State. Will they be out of the rankings, or will they slip them in there at 25 just to have another group of 5 school in there, Mountain West, best team in there, see what happens there. But I expect it to go – it'll be Ohio State, then Indiana. I think there'll be some temptation to put Indiana at 1, but I can't do that yet. I think you'll see Alabama, Texas A&M rounding out the top 4. I think Oregon's going to be at 8. I think it's going to cause a lot of belly aching in Eugene, where they see BYU is going to be at 7. I think BYU is going to be in front of Oregon. And I think that Texas Tech will be right behind Oregon. So it's set up for the winner of this Texas Tech BYU game to kind of move up in the rankings and the loser to move down a little bit, depending on how that goes. So I hear a lot of people in the Big 12 saying they hope that's a great game and it goes overtime and the committee goes, oh, I need to see both of these teams again. It's going to be a lot of that going on in the next few weeks, but I'll tell you what's going to happen tonight. No one's going to be happy. And the ESPN crew is going to be sitting there saying the SEC got hosed. And the Big Ten is going to be going, oh my gosh, we deserve 4 or 5 teams in here. This is terrible. This is a travesty. Everybody's going to be pissed off.
Well, it's just like the world, John. So we're on good shape.
Nobody.
All right. Follow John Canzano, BFT, johncanzano.com radio show starting at 3:00 today with us here every single Tuesday. Again, brought to you by Flat Stick Pup. Thanks, John. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, Puck.
There he is, John Canzano, johncanzano.com. You missed any of that, we'll be up later on all the podcast platforms. Of course, you can watch us on YouTube. Hit that like button, subscribe, please, there. Also on Apple, Spotify, wherever you find your podcasts, including, ironically, iHeartRadio. All right, coming up next, Danny Kelly, as we talk NFL trade deadline. We'll get you caught up on a big deal the Seahawks made earlier today and a blockbuster in the NFL that happened earlier this morning. Danny, we talk all things NFL here on Puck Sports and the Daily Puck Drop, all brought to you by Georgetown Brewery.
Drink Georgetown Tavern Beer, your new locally brewed domestic-style lager. 4.2% alcohol. Cheap, good, local.
All right, Danny Kelly, as you join us from the Ringer all the time. Danny Kelly, Danny B. Kelly there on social media. Check all of his work up at theringer.com. Check out, again, all the podcasts that he and his crew do. Ringer NFL Draft Show, and, of course, also the Fantasy Football Show and all things NFL. Well, trade deadline day. I feel like the trade deadline day in the NFL has gotten bigger and bigger in the last 5 years. Never was a deal before that, but we've seen deals all the time happen. We'll get to the huge deal in the NFL with Sauce Gardner, but let's first start with what the Seahawks did. They get a wide receiver there from the New Orleans Saints, Rashid Shaheed. I want to call him Rashid Shaheed of Washington, the old running back. So I have to look at his name every time to make sure I'm not calling him the wrong name. They get a Shaheed for a 2026 4th and 5th round pick. What do you make of it?
I mean, I don't know if you remember, but this is the idea that I threw out last week. In fact, and I like it a lot. I think it makes a lot of sense for the Seahawks, the type of offense they run. He reunites with Clint Kubiak, who he had last year. So he knows the offense and in theory can hit the ground running with that. He's just one more weapon for them that can get deep. Last year with Kubiak, he averaged over 17 yards per catch, or per target. So he was being looked at as a downfield threat in that offense, and he was really, really good at it. He was actually on pace for almost 1,000 yards before he got hurt. So this is a really good player. And I think obviously giving up 2 picks with him, the idea would be that you hopefully can re-sign him after this year. It's not just a 1-year rental, but I think it gives them great depth. I don't think it's like necessarily a huge bad thing for Torrey Horton. It's just another good player in their offense, another guy that they can scheme up targets downfield to. And overall it just improves their depth, improves, it makes it harder to defend, and hopefully they can continue to kind of keep rolling with this deep game that they're doing right now. Sam Darnold has more deep yards, so that's on targets of 20 plus yards downfield, than any other player in the NFL. And his explosive play rate is the highest in the NFL. So they are a deep passing offense. What?
When we spent all offseason talking about can they fix the running game, this is why it's so funny to me how this season has unfolded for them offensively. Because it's their passing game that's been the best part, when last year everyone's like, they passed the ball too much. Can we run it? And again, they were right. We got different play callers, different quarterback, different scheme, all of that. I just find that it's comical to me where they're at, and the fact that they made a trade for a wide receiver, this season when so much focus was about, getting back to being physical and running the football. It all makes sense. What do you think this means? You brought up Horton. What does this mean? Do you think of how they feel right now about Cooper Kupp? And not from a production standpoint, maybe from a health standpoint.
Health is the thing I think that you have to consider here. He got hurt in practice late in the week. I don't really know exactly what happened there. But I mean, yeah, Kupp has been hurt the last couple of years. I think they probably came into this season with eyes wide open in terms of like his reliability at this point in his career is probably not super high. And so, this is the reason I talked about Shaheed last week is what does the depth look like outside of Horton and JSN right now? They've got a couple of very good young tight ends in Barner and Arroyo. Cody White scored a touchdown. I don't know a lot about Cody White. And so like I think Jake Bobo, he's kind of a fan favorite, but I don't know if he can necessarily be relied on. So yeah, to me it's a big addition because I think the best teams, the best offenses in the NFL, if you look around the league, they always have at least two guys. They always have at least two weapons. It makes it so much harder on a defense. When you can't just like focus in on one guy. I think the JSN stuff has been incredibly exciting this year, but asking him to have like 50% of the offense's passing production is probably asking him to do too much. And if you get a good defense with a shutdown corner, you have to be able to do something else. And so, yeah, I like this from a lot of angles. I think Torrey Horton can continue to develop, and he's probably going to still play. But Shaheed is experienced, and like I said, yeah, he knows this offense with Kubiak, and he's been proven very effective in it. So, yeah, I'm very excited. I think that, and giving up 4th and 5th rounders, I'm just glad that he didn't give up a third. That's what it sounded like the Saints wanted. 4th and 5th rounders, to me, that's just like that's chump change. That's money. That's money you find in the couch cushions, more or less. Like hopefully it turns into something, but most of the time it doesn't.
Do we still find money in the couch cushions anymore because people don't use physical money anymore, right?
No, not really.
Yeah,
usually
it's all
just
Venmo
like
and PayPal, and
I find like food crumbs in the couch cushions these days.
Popcorn. That's what I find in my popcorn.
Dog hair.
So much stuff.
That's what's in my couch.
Hey, Joel's 1975 on our chat wants to know, what is Danny Kelly hearing? Any other deals rumored coming for the Seahawks? I asked Danny to put together like a hypothetical wish list. It didn't even have to be realistic what he'd want. What else would you want Seattle to do?
A couple
if
things
they could pull it off.
Go get Max Crosby. I don't know.
God, yeah.
We're really like shooting for the stars here. I don't know. I don't know if that's the smartest thing to do necessarily. It feels like they're building in the right way right now. They have a young roster. Maybe trading a couple firsts is probably not the most, I don't know, the smartest thing to do or whatever. But yeah, Max Crosby certainly comes to mind. Trey Hendrickson from the Bengals comes to mind. I mean, I go back to like the early Seahawks when they made runs at the Super Bowls. They had just elite depth at pass rusher. And when you have 4 or 5 guys that can come in and rotate in any game, that is just such a massive advantage. In addition to, it helps you weather the storm of injuries throughout the year.
Right.
So I think an edge rusher, obviously it feels like a little bit redundant right now, but like having as much depth at edge rusher as you can get is huge. I think right now with Ernest Jones injury uncertainty, I think a linebacker, people were throwing out Jordan Brooks from the Dolphins, our old friend Jordan Brooks. So I believe the Seahawks like wanted to re-sign him. He just kind of got paid way too much really quickly.
Yeah, that's how I remember the story.
Yeah, and so I mean, if they can figure out a way to get him back,
I've heard Williams, some people have texted me, what about Bobby? Bring Bobby back.
I don't know. Bobby's getting kind of toasted this year in coverage. I don't know if that necessarily is the best idea. Obviously, for vibes, it'd be awesome. The other ones that I've really kind of circled and hope, and again, like you have to be realistic. The guys that are available at this time, especially on the offensive line, are not guys that are performing at a super high level. They're for whatever reason, they're either benched on their team or have underperformed and are open to being traded. Jackson Powers Johnson, another guy from the Raiders who recently was benched. I think he got back in this last week, but he's sort of a fringe guy for them. Maybe he's not their long-term plan. He can play center or guard. This is a former Oregon guy. Joel Bitonio from the Browns, a little bit older, but a long-time, very steely veteran is another guy that I've seen thrown out there. There's a couple other interior offensive linemen. I would love to see them make a move at the guard position or center.
Yeah, sure.
To kind of bolster that position.
I like Sundell.
Well, just having the depth and the versatility to kind of like fit guys in. I would say I've not been impressed with their interior offensive line for the most part. I mean, it's not been atrocious this year, which is great. It's improvement from last year.
Put that on a banner.
The other guy that's being thrown out there as a name, and I don't know if he's actually available for a trade, but is Tavontre Sweat from the Titans, who is like this 6'4" or 6'6" guy, 350 pounds, just a big space eater in the middle. He's really powerful. He's a guy that I really liked coming out of the draft, and he's played well for the
Mississippi State guy.
I'm trying to remember, yeah, but he's just like he's big, powerful, and a little bit twitchy. And he's been good in the NFL. I don't really know. He's a Texas guy. He's the one who was lining up right next to
you're right.
Murphy.
Yeah.
And so like getting them back together might be kind of a fun a fun reunion. So I don't know. There's a bunch of guys out there that I think could make the Seahawks better. There's a couple other edge guys. Arnold Ebiketie from the Falcons has been a name who I've seen thrown out there. I liked him when he was coming out of the draft. Maybe look at corner. The Sauce Gardner trade is obviously pretty wild, but I think there's a few options the Seahawks could still do.
And you think about it, you go back to when they were rookies, everyone, and I thought made a viable argument that Reek Willen should have been the rookie of the year.
I know, over Sauce.
Sauce Gardner, who then gets dealt today to the Colts for not one, but 2 first-round picks. This is the Colts pushing all their chips in right now.
So like on one hand, I get it because everything is coming together for that offense, like legitimately one of the best offenses in terms of points per drive and efficiency and explosiveness of this century. It's one of the best offenses we've seen this century through 8 games. And I think that they want to capitalize on that. Maybe they're thinking to themselves like lightning might not strike twice with this offense. It's very hard to get all the moving pieces of free agency and health and players and all that together and kind of make a run at this thing. So, the cornerback position was certainly like one of their biggest weaknesses. They've had several injuries at the position and they've been getting cooked there. So it makes a lot of sense, I think, from a strategic point of view to try and like go for it this year, but 2 firsts and AD Mitchell is a lot to give up for one player, for a corner who is getting paid a whole hell of a lot of money starting next year. So I don't know. I think it's a risky move. It does remind me just a little bit of the Jamal Adams trade from a couple years ago.
That worked out.
Yeah, that worked out great. But I do think he's a better player and he's at a more important position. So Sauce is than Adams was. So, I don't think it's that level, but it is risky to kind of go all in on and mortgage your future a bit to go get one player.
All right, every week we ask you Danny's dimes, and these are Danny's observations from the NFL. I don't know where he's going.
I don't know either.
Direction he's taking this into
could go anywhere.
We've done We've done trade talk. What else do you have for us this week?
Let's just pull this up because I actually just prepared for the trade talk. I thought that's what we were doing.
Oh, hey, we You're like,
I blew it. I'm sorry, Puck.
Son of a bitch. You ruined it. Okay, we'll just go right into the trade talk. I asked you, you brought up Max Crosby. What are other trades in the NFL that you want to see? That Danny Kelly from the Ringer, host of all the Ringer NFL draft shows and content, wants to see.
Other trades that I want to see. First, let's talk about one trade that I liked, and then we can get into other trades that I want to see. I really like the Jacoby Myers trade for the Jags. It's an interesting one from the point of view that he is exactly what the Jags don't have at receiver right now, which is a reliable veteran who like lines up in the right spots, catches everything that goes to him, and in theory can give Trevor Lawrence, like a guy that he can rely on, which he just hasn't really had. Like Travis Hunter, exciting flashes, but he's been a rookie, and he's hurt. You got Brian Thomas Jr., who was really good last year, who's fallen back to earth badly this season and been kind of all over the place with drops and bad body language and all this stuff. Now he's hurt. Parker Washington, I think, is a good player, but, he's obviously not like a number 1 type player. So I think this Jacoby Myers trade makes a ton of sense for the Jags who, they're 5-3. They're still trying to make a run for it here and get to the playoffs. And I think that makes a ton of sense for them. I think in terms of guys that I would like to see traded, Max Crosby is one of them. Breece Hall, the Jets seem to be having a fire sale here.
Yeah.
And Breece Hall makes no sense for them in the long term. If they can get anything for him, I think it makes sense for him to go somewhere. The Chiefs are kind of like the favorite team everybody likes to send on a running back to because Kareem Hunt is kind of over the hill. Pacheco's hurt. So Breece Hall in that Chiefs offense would be a lot of fun. And let's see here. What else? Oh, the Steelers getting a receiver. I know that they've been in the market for a receiver. DJ Moore for the Bears is an interesting one to me because it seems like the Bears are reloading for the future. They drafted Luther Burden. They drafted Colston Loveland. They've got a couple other guys coming up, and DJ Moore. I don't know if he seems to be really all that into it right now in Chicago. He did have a good game this last game, but overall,
but why? But they're 5-3.
I know, but like, are they really good, or are they just 5-3? I think I have a feeling like you have to be realistic as a team. I don't know if they will be, because a lot of teams are just like, we're going to go for it. But like, I don't know if this is like a really good team. Although they did just trade for Joe Tyron. What's his name? Sorry.
Yeah, he from the
Washington.
Husky that was.
Yeah.
He was a commit to Wazoo, and then he was a trader. Then he went to UW, and Renton kid. Yeah.
So
Good
maybe
player.
they see them there. If they're buying, then they probably do see themselves as like a player.
Yeah, that fan base. I don't know. I think for a fan base, it's like, hey man, we've been rebuilding since McMahon. Can we just win?
Let's try
now.
to win.
Can we just win? Is it okay to go out and just do whatever we can to win? It might be a little
fair.
hard sale, but.
Let's see. I think the other guys that have been circled as trade, like likely to be traded, David Njoku from the Browns. I think it makes a lot of sense for a team to go get him. The Packers.
I drafted him every year in fantasy.
Yeah.
Just always was enamored by him.
I mean, he's been in the league for a while now.
Yeah.
He's a good player. Maybe the Packers, after losing Tucker Kraft, might go get a guy like that. The Patriots are in the market for receiver help, I think. So they could be another team that looks for a receiver. Jalen Waddle is apparently on the block. I don't really know if they would actually trade him unless they got like a really good deal. And I think that's about it at the receiver position. I mean, I had already written down A.D. Mitchell, but he's gone now. So yeah, I think it's going to be very interesting. This is already a really active. We're recording at 1:00 Pacific, and we're talking about the trade deadline. And we were starting to get a little bit worried that there wouldn't be anything to talk about, but trades have been coming in here a little bit fast and furious over the last like hour. So
yeah, it's again, I just never remember it ever being like this. And I don't know what's changed in the NFL. I think maybe, it's kind of a philosophy that John Schneider has a little bit. I think it's, you have all these draft picks. This league used to be, it's draft.
Yeah.
That's how you build. That's how you load up. And I think this new GMs kind of came in, and Schneider part of it, that I'm willing to give up draft picks if I can go get a proven player in the league right now. Because, again, you can evaluate these guys in college all you want for the draft, but they are unproven. You don't know how they're going to be.
And it takes a long time.
And it takes
a lot of times. It takes 2 or 3 years for these investments to kind of pay off. And I think it's a number of things. The salary cap, the collective bargaining agreement, like kind of changed things a little bit in terms of just like how much players are making. Gives teams a little bit like different model for how they build their roster when you don't have to pay rookies like a shit ton of money. So that's one thing. I think there's it's like a cultural thing. It's like a peer pressure thing. Now there's just less pushback if you make a big trade.
Right.
There's just, people are more open to it. People are more open to trading mid-round picks than they ever have been in the past. It feels like, they're using it like capital. It's any other type of capital where, and then I also think just like Les Snead and the Rams having so much success where they didn't have a first round draft pick for like 8 straight years, and they were building really good teams, kind of showed, I think, franchises and GMs and guys coming up in the league that like you can do it different ways. It's not just one way to do team building. And so, I think it's just like a number of variables, number of factors, and teams are just a lot more willing to like stick their neck out, I guess, on these trades, because it does open you up to criticism when you make these trades. But with more people doing it, it just becomes more normalized.
All right, we're based off of what you saw Sunday night. Seahawks currently 3rd seed in the NFC, tied with the top record in the NFC there at 6-2. And so where are they at? Well, how legitimate right now is the Super Bowl talker around this team?
I mean, I'm not quite to the Super Bowl talk yet, but I do think they are a legit good team. I mean, if you look at like DVOA, which is a very good efficiency metric, they're up there among the top teams in the NFL in all three phases, defense, offense, special teams. There's a world in which this team is 8-0. I mean, they lost the 2 games they lost were like end of game kind of things that just like the ball didn't bounce their way or whatever.
Sure.
And their offense has been playing so much better than I expected. I think the one thing that just kind of holds me back, and this is what you alluded to at the beginning of the pod or the show, is that, they can't run the ball very well right now. They're just not running the ball very well. They're still very committed to it. In fact, they run at one of the highest rates in the NFL in terms of their early down run rate is one of the higher ones in the NFL. But their success rate's very low. They still haven't kind of like figured out how they want their running back rotation to go. It feels like, with Charbonnet and Walker, they're trying to get both of those guys rolling a little bit. And right now their passing game is what's keeping them afloat, and their deep passing game in particular is what's doing it for them. So I do worry a little bit that like relying on deep passes as the foundation of your offense is a little bit like a 3-point shooting team that goes cold in the fourth quarter on something. You know what I mean? Like you're kind of like living by the deep ball and dying by the deep ball a bit. So that worries me just a little bit. It's nice to have more than one way to beat a team. A lot of teams have different strategies and different styles. And so like having more than one punch in your arsenal is nice, but I think that's kind of in the big picture, like the lack of a run game is lower. Like I would rather have a good passing game than a good running game, put it that way. So having a good passing game is certainly a good thing. But I think obviously if beggars can't be choosers, if I could like quibble, I would want them to be a much better run team, and maybe they will be in the second half.
It could be. They could get better at it. But what's interesting about it is that Walker's averaging 4.5 yards a carry. That's good.
Yeah.
He's just like, you would lean in. I think that's got to be for me, the second half strategy would be, we have to, it doesn't need to be 60-40 anymore. Whatever their reps are being split, 50-50, it needs to be predominantly more Kenneth Walker.
Yeah.
He needs to get some more carries.
I would agree with you on that one. It's interesting because I think I saw Greg Bell reporting this the other day that they're kind of doing this because of the injuries that he had over the last year. They're trying to manage him. They're trying not to put too much on his plate. He's got this foot thing that kind of lingered, and they just want to have him at the end of the year. I think that's like a big reason why they're doing it this way. So I don't know. I do agree with you though that like he's much more explosive, and that's actually not something that success rate really takes into account. By the way, like success rate is like a binary thing. It's pass fail, and Kenneth Walker is much more explosive than Zach Charbonnet, and he gives you those 20-yard runs, 10-yard runs, and helps you kind of move the ball on drives where you have those explosive plays. The odds of you scoring on any particular drive where you have an explosive play, they go up exponentially. So yeah, I mean, I generally agree. I think it's just hard to matriculate down the field like 10 play drives. It's just harder to do that in the NFL. So.
All right, what do you got planned the rest of the week? What do you got today? If people want to hear more of you, see more of you, tell everyone where they find you.
You can find us at the Ringer Fantasy Football Show. We are recording here at 1:00, breaking down all the trades. We are doing our Tuesday show is Power Hour. It goes up tomorrow morning. So we're going to rank all the different trades, talk about that. We got our weekly preview coming up on Friday. We have rankings for fantasy up at theringer.com. I'm also going to be doing a little bit of writing today about the trade deadline. So you can find my work at theringer.com.
This guy does it all. He is a Renaissance man, ladies and gentlemen. He's with us every single Tuesday. Danny Kelly. Follow him on social media, Danny B. Kelly. Again, a senior staff writer at The Ringer. Check out the Ringer Fantasy Football Show. Everything, theringer.com. Thank you, Danny. Appreciate it. Always enjoy these chats. We'll talk to you next week.
All right. Sounds good, man.
There he is again, Danny Kelly with us. In case you missed any of it, will be podcast later on all the platforms, YouTube, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. We talk NFL every week with Danny. Brought to you again by Georgetown Brewery, makers of Manny's, Bodhisattva, Rogers Pilsner, and their new Tavern Beer. Tasting Room Beer Garden open daily, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Visit georgetownbeer.com. So a busy day on this NFL trade deadline. Which, again, we're 2 hours away from the deadline becoming official, the National Football League. The Seahawks making a deal right at the start of the show, which just irks me because about 10 minutes prior, I had taped something with Garofolo, just a quick primer that we were going to play at right at the top. And he had hinted about a move for the Seahawks on the wide receiver front that we obviously didn't play. Because they made the move. In fact, you know what? I should play it. I think he gets the deal during the interview. He doesn't say anything. He's like, oh, that's interesting. Well, he definitely gets the Sauce Gardner. For sure, gets the Sauce Gardner deal during the time we taped. We taped right around like 9:50. Like, it was right before we started the show. And so he's like, oh, that's a big one. And that was the Sauce Gardner deal. So again, Rashid Shaheed, wide receiver, Saints. Again, deep threat. Was coached under Clint Kubiak. Big deep threat, just adding an arsenal to this passing game, which has been the story here for the Seahawks offense. It's a 4th and 5th round pick in next year. So it's you are sending those picks, and you would assume, again, without a contract, that they would now negotiate a new contract with him. So we'll wait and see. I don't know if that happens soon, but I would think the intent for Seattle and John Schneider is to do something long-term with him. Of course, the huge trade of the day, the Jets, Sauce Gardner to the Colts for 2 first-round picks. Logan Wilson, linebacker from the Bengals, traded to the Cowboys. Draymond Jones traded to the Ravens from the Titans. And Jacoby Myers from the Raiders to the Jaguars. Also coming out later today on this Tuesday, another episode of Old Crimson with myself, Jim Moore, the go-to guy, former All-American safety at Washington State University, the great Paul Sorensen. We record Tuesday morning. We yelled and screamed at each other about the Cougs loss to Oregon State. We played the blame game because that's everyone's favorite game, Coug fans on social media, the blame game. Everybody wants Danny Freund, the offensive coordinator, fired. Was it his fault? Whose fault was it? We discuss it all. That will be coming out later this afternoon for all you Coug fans. But let's a couple of other housekeeping items. There was no update on Ernest Jones from yesterday from Mike McDonald, just in case everyone knows that. No update on his injury status, how long he'll be out for. I would assume he doesn't play this weekend against Arizona. Cal Raleigh was officially named a finalist for the AL MVP, along with Jose Ramirez and Aaron Judge. That award's going to be handed out November 13th at 4 o'clock. In addition, Dan Wilson named a finalist for the American League Manager of the Year. All right, let's wrap up the show as we always do with Hey, What the Puck? Brought to you by our good friends at Restoration One. It is your company that's going to help you, whether you own a business or your home, any type of damage to it, fire, mold, water damage, does not matter. They are your one-stop shop that's going to take care of you from point A to point B. Give them a call. Tell them I sent you. 206-817-8917. Visit them at restoration1.com, the North Seattle franchise. Going to piggyback what we talked with Canzano earlier today about the NIL. And my message to these collectives is, and the coaches and the schools, that, you know, hey, if you want success, you got to pay. You got to start giving money to the collective in a school. You can't sit here and complain if you don't give money. I understand the intent of these collectives and these schools to ask for money. And yes, is it a coincidence that these teams that will be ranked tonight are also spending the most amount of money? No. I mean, obviously, you spend more money, you're going to get better players. I think everyone understands that. My issue with all of it, and I think it's an issue that many of you probably have as well, is where is it going? Who is getting the money? What players are getting the money? How many years are they signed to? You know, these guys in college football, these players and these schools, they want to be treated like professional players, but they're not. They're better than professional players, because professional players don't get to be like this. They don't sign contracts and get paid $3 million and then go, well, I don't like it here anymore. I'm going to go someplace else now. They don't get to do that. But in college football, you can. No regulation. You want people to spend more money on collectives and NIL, then be transparent. Here's our budget. Here's our payroll. And you don't want to upset people in the locker room? F it. This isn't high school. This isn't youth football anymore. This is big boy professional sports. Sorry, not everybody's worth the same. They better realize that right now. And the other thing is they know how much guys are getting because players talk. I just think if these schools would be transparent of what the budget is, what the payroll is, what people are getting, and where the money is going specifically to who, I think you'd have people willing to pay into the collectives. But if you keep it a secret, people are upset because they don't know where it's going. And that has got to change in this sport. All right, that's Hey What the Puck, brought to you by Restoration One. Again, give them a call, 206-817-8917. Locally owned and operated. They're going to take care of any damages to your commercial or residential property. You can also visit them online at restoration1.com, the North Seattle franchise. Big thanks to everybody watching and listening today. As always, a big thanks to our sponsors, Limback Lumber, Flat Stick Pub, Georgetown Brewery, and Restoration One. You can find today's Daily Punch Drop up on YouTube. When you're there, please subscribe to the channel, like the channel, leave a comment. Also, find the Daily Puck Drop on your favorite podcast platforms. Does not matter which one, Apple and Spotify, Amazon Music. And you can find everything up at pucksports.com, including the audio podcast and the video. Also, you can sign up there to become a Pucks Posse member. It's just $5 a month. It's a cup of coffee. You support all the free content we do daily, plus bonus shows that we give you every single week. Any issues with that payment, but you'd like to help out, but you're like, I can't do it, send me an email, puck@pucksports.com. All right. What else do we got? That's it. All right. A reminder, Old Crimson coming out a little bit later. And we'll give you our breakdown of the Cougars' loss to the Beavers, looking ahead to the rest of the season. We had a lot of Danny Freund talk there, the offensive coordinator. Coming up tomorrow, Wednesday's show, the go-to guy is back. Also, more football, more Seahawks reaction with the one and only Rob Staten, SeahawksDraftBlog.com, his reaction to the move that the Seahawks made earlier today in the trade for Rashid Shaheed. So we will talk to Rob and the go-to guy tomorrow. We'll talk to you tomorrow as well. As always, we promise to be better.
No shoes, no ties.
Anybody like to smoke some pot?
Yeah.
I was born to love. I was born to lick your face. I was born to rub you, but you were born to rub me first.
What do you need my address for? We'd like to send out a mailer.
Mother of mercy, I don't speak Japanese!